Call the meeting to order. Please join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the regular city council meeting for May the 12th of 2025. At the beginning of all the meetings from now on, we're going to say something similar to this. If everyone could please silence your phones to make sure that they're either off or they vibrate only, since that way it doesn't distract the meeting itself. Roll call, please.
Weber.
Here.
Hannah.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Maynor.
Here.
Persauter.
Here.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Jensen. Here.
Next, I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 7-0. Next, we move to public comment. We don't have anything, correct, Dave?
No, I moved the clipboard up.
Okay. Because we hopefully have people watching, I want to say a couple things about public comment. Public comment is comments on things that are not on the agenda. So if you come up for public comment and you're talking about something that's not on the agenda, council, based upon the open meeting rules, can only discuss or ask questions or respond to questions that are things that are on the agenda itself. So if a person asks questions during their public comment, we're not permitted to answer them. It's not that we don't want to, it's that we're not permitted under Iowa law. The second thing is on the agenda items, when there is an agenda item that's being presented and somebody wishes to speak with that regard to that, we can respond to their questions then because it's an agenda item. The other issue is with regard to work sessions. There's been people that have been indicating that we're not having enough discussion during the meetings themselves, and we just go straight to a vote. And the reason that we have work sessions is so that we can talk about nobody makes decisions during work session, but what we do during work session is individual council members bring things before the council that they may or may not think is a great idea, but it may be something that they want to talk about or that the admin wants to talk about in advance of a meeting. So when the work sessions last considerably longer, as much as 3 hours from the starting time. And during that meeting, the work session itself, we talk about each of the individual items, which ultimately will end up for action items on the agendas themselves. So let's move to the proclamations. I have two. The first is the Poppy Proclamation. Whereas America is the land of freedom and preserved and protected willingly and freely by citizen soldiers, whereas millions have answered the call to arms and have died in the field of battle. Whereas a nation at peace must be reminded of the price of war and the debt owed to those who have died in war. Whereas the red poppy has been designated a symbol of sacrifice of lives in all wars, and whereas the American Legion Auxiliary has pledged to remind America annually of the debt through the distribution of memorial flower. I, Brad Bleichner, Mayor of Independence, Buchanan County, Iowa, do hereby proclaim that the 16th and 17th days of May 2025 is Poppy Days, and ask that all citizens pay tribute to those that have made the ultimate sacrifice in the name of freedom by wearing and displaying the memorial poppy on this day. I have hereunder set my hand and caused the affixed to be affixed the official seal of Independence, Buchanan County, Iowa, this 12th day of May 2025. Second one is dealing with the National Police Week. To recognize National Police Week 2025 and to honor the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are more than 800,000 law enforcement officers serving the communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Independence Police Department. Whereas since the first recorded death in 1786, there are currently more than 24,000 law enforcement officers in the United States that have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty, including 2 members of the Independence Police Department. Whereas the names of those dedicated public officials are engraved in the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. Whereas May 15th is designated the Peace Officers Memorial Day, in honor of all fallen officers and their families, and the U.S. flag should be flown at half-staff. Therefore, be it resolved that the City of Independence will observe May 11th to the 17th, 2025 as National Police Week in Independence, Iowa, and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across the nation. And I've signed this. Dave, do you want to come up and I'll... Okay, next we move to the consent agenda. I need a motion to accept and approve the consent agenda that improves the following. The minutes of the April 28, 2025 regular meeting, the Dollar General 2329 Class B retail alcohol license renewal with a tentative effective date of March 1, 2025 through February 28, 2026. The Crowbar Class C retail alcohol license renewal with outdoor service with a tentative effective date of May 15, 2025 through May 14, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Passes 7-0. Next, we move to the financials, item number 7. I need a motion to approve the claims for payment.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Passes 7-0. Next, we move to the bank reconciliation. Again, this is information only. Anybody have any questions with regard to the bank reconciliation?
No, I think people need to realize that this is not mandated. Susie does this for us and has done it for quite some time, and it is very helpful.
It is extremely helpful.
Thank you, Susie.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Next, we move to the revenues and expenses to date. Again, this is information only. Anybody have any questions with regard to the revenues and expenses to date? Okay, next we move to item number 10. Pursuant to the agenda, I'll now convene a public hearing for the fiscal year 2025 budget amendment number 2.
I did not receive anything.
Okay? And there's nobody here that's indicated that they wish to speak about regarding this, so I'll now close the public hearing, and the clerk shall note that there were no comments in the record.
Mayor, for the record, I think we need to indicate there's some misconceptions that since there's a need for additional money, and they don't realize that it comes out of our reserves, that there is no additional raising of their levy. Everything is structured as and mandated as it was
Right.
at the beginning.
And this second amendment also is, it's both revenue and expenses, so there's almost $800,000 in additional revenue that we got since the fiscal year started.
Correct.
Okay, let's move then to item number 11. Pursuant to the agenda, I'll now convene a public hearing for the proposal to sell real property.
I did not receive anything related to this either.
Okay. So I'll now close
We
the,
didn't receive any bids either.
right, there were no bids received.
I saw that.
So,
When can we talk about the next step?
The thought process would be for it to come back to the June work session, and then we'll talk at that point about what the next steps are with this property and what the council would like to do with it.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
I'll now close the public hearing, and the city clerk shall note the comments for the record. Next, we move to item number 12. I need a motion to approve the first reading of an ordinance amending provisions pertaining to Chapter 90 Water Service System.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this is we talked about this at the work session on August the 5th. This deals with where the ownership of the water line is going to be with regard to the street area. Anything else that, Matt, we need to talk about further? I think everybody, any comments or
So-
additional discussion?
I guess, just for clarity, that anything happens from the water main to the street is the city's responsibility?
So
Is that
the
how I
intent of this,
understood it?
the intent of this is from the curb valve that sits behind generally behind the sidewalk. Some of them are in the sidewalk. There's various locations throughout the city. But generally, especially on newer subdivisions, they're right behind the sidewalk. From that curb valve to the main would be the city's responsibility, because the main is going to be in the street, and the thought process there was that the city should be taking care of that since that's within the city's right-of-way anyway. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Anything further on that? Okay, this would be a roll call vote then.
Hannah,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Maynard,
Yes.
Pursader,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
So that passes 7-0. Does anyone want to make a motion to suspend the statutory rule requiring that an ordinance be considered and voted on for passage in 2 council meetings prior to the meeting in which it's finalized?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Again, that would be a roll call vote then.
Moore,
Yes.
Maynard,
Yes.
Pursader,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Hannah.
No.
Passes 6-1. Next, we move to the motion itself.
Third and final reading.
So I need a motion to have this ordinance, which amends the provisions pertaining to Chapter 90 Water System Service, placed on its final passage for adoption pursuant to Iowa Code Section 380.3, and to authorize the mayor to sign the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Maynard,
Yes.
Pursader,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Next, we move to item number 13. I need a motion to approve the second reading of an ordinance amending the provisions pertaining to Chapter 69 parking regulations. As you'll recall, these are the changes with regard to the use of public parking lots, the no parking area overnight, and then the 2-hour parking during business hours.
So moved.
Second.
The motion is second. Further discussion with regard to this? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote then.
Pursader,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Maynard.
Yes.
Does anybody want to suspend the statutory rule with regard to this issue and have the,
So move it.
okay, is there a second as well?
Second.
Okay, this will be a roll call vote again.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Hannah,
No.
Moore,
Yes.
Maynard,
Yes.
Pursader.
Yes.
Passes 6-1. Next, I need a motion to have the ordinance which amends the provisions pertaining to Chapter 69 parking regulations placed for final passage for adoption pursuant to Iowa Code Section 380.3, and to authorize the mayor to sign the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. This will be a roll call vote.
Jensen.
Mayor,
Yes, sorry.
on all these that we have just done, I just think there should be the question called if anybody has any discussion before we immediately go into the vote, in case somebody just wants to make a comment on it.
That would, we try to do that, but at this point, we've already had the first reading. The second reading's now been approved, so this is just a procedural thing, not an actual discussion with regard to it. If there's questions that you have or want to discuss further, it would be during the motion part itself. And we can certainly do that if you have further discussion that you want to have with regard to it.
Right, but you had the motion here and it got seconded, you immediately said, let's go to the roll call, so I'm just saying, if, for the general public, when any of these things are up, I think if anybody wants to say anything for the general public's information, that they could, discuss and say, well, this is, why I think we should be doing this or something.
Understood exactly. Usually I'll try to do that when the motion itself comes up, but because we've already suspended the rule to allow it to be heard at one time, that's the reason why I didn't give it. But if anybody has discussion that they want to have on this before we have the vote, we certainly can do that. Okay. Hearing none, this would be a roll call vote then.
Jensen,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Maynard,
Yes.
Pursader,
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Next, we move to item number 14. This is a motion to approve and authorize the mayor to sign the resolution that approves the salary wage increases effective at the beginning of the pay period, which includes July 1st, 2025. I need a motion,
So moved.
and I need a second. I have a motion and a second.
Is this just going to be for a year? And then
Yeah.
it can be looked
Yeah.
at next year?
Every year. The intention is to bring this back before the council every year, because every year we'll look at what the percentages are as far as a base rate plus merit, that's got to be reviewed every year.
Thank you.
It's going to change depending on economic factors. There's a lot of different things that go into that decision that you guys make. So, yes, absolutely.
Further discussion?
Prior to this, it was based on a 2-year schedule, I think, when it did.
Well, that was for union contracts, but we always bring a wage resolution every year for council to approve, so.
Okay.
That makes sense.
For non-union.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
The only other discussion I would have on this is, since it is the first time that the city is going with a merit-based schedule, I think we need to look at it a little bit more deeper next go-around, a year from now. Because like the questions, it seemed like, you got 4 different breakdowns on pay raises, but yet the questions were very limited when the, to my knowledge anyway, from when the people were being asked questions on the reviews.
So the reviews that were done for staff, for department heads, there's 26 individual questions on those reviews.
But for staff, there was not though, right?
For staff, there's I'd have to look, but I think it's between 18 and 19, somewhere in that range.
Okay,
But it's definitely more than 4 or 5.
okay. Then somebody told me wrong then.
Well, there was 5 questions at the beginning of the review that are more things like, what do you feel like you've done well this year? I'd have to bring in the exact reviews and show you those questions, but those are more discussion questions. Those are not rating questions.
Okay.
The ratings that occur are based on the competencies, which are directly derived from the job descriptions. You'll get a lot more information about how that works also when we go through the salary study process, because when we do that process, we're going to be looking at job descriptions and updating job descriptions. And then the reviews are based on, they're literally just based on the job descriptions.
Okay.
Are we going to be doing that sooner or what?
Probably this summer, fall, late summer, early fall is when we'll start looking at that.
I just think it's a good thing that we're finally doing merit increases, but that's my personal opinion, not on both.
I think merit is the way to go. Because then you get a raise based on your performance.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Catherine?
That work?
The fan?
I know I'm warm, so if I'm warm, you guys gotta be really warm.
It does, but we have to stand on a ladder, and then it flickers with the lights and causes headache. So that's why that one's off.
We'll just sweat a little bit longer here. Okay,
Other
sorry.
than that, it's great.
We hate to see, is he spinning around up there? Okay, so.
Sorry.
If you want to give me just a second, I'll tell you how many questions are on there.
Okay.
While he's doing that,
I'll just read you the questions too. There's 5 questions on the reviews. The first one is list what you consider to be your greatest accomplishments during your last review period. The second question is what would you like your performance goals, objectives, projects, and/or tasks for the next review period to be? Third question is what job duties do you perform regularly, weekly, or biweekly that need to be added to your job description? Fourth question is, are there job duties listed in your job description that need to be removed because you no longer perform them? Fifth question is one area of your job performance that you feel you could improve on? Those are the 5 questions at the beginning that, again, are all designed to generate conversation between the manager and the employee to make sure that expectations are being met and that things are being done the way they're supposed to be done. Competencies from there are the things that are in there, and there are 15 competencies as a base in everybody's description or jobs across the organization.
Okay.
And they're going to be
So
things.
when they told me 4 or 5, they were basically referring to the first part, not the
Correct.
second part.
They're going to be things based on like organizational skills, initiative, teamwork, dependability, communication, problem solving, productivity, interpersonal skills, quality, ethics, job knowledge and skills and ability, resident responsiveness and service, self-development, safety, computer skills. Those are all 15 of the competencies that are listed.
Okay.
So the intention, of course, is to try to make them detailed, but also not cumbersome. And that's always a balancing act. So.
But that's good to know that it's more than what I
And then
was
your,
told.
right, and then your department heads have 26 because they have additional ones like leadership and things like that that are more related to being in the department head role. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And budget, stuff like that.
Further discussion? Okay, this would be a roll call vote, and this is the fiscal year 2026 wage increases for everyone but the city manager on this, that you're voting on here, okay? Roll call.
Weber,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Maynard,
Yes.
Prusader,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Jensen.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Next, we move to item number 15. I need a motion to approve and authorize the mayor to sign the resolution that approves the salary increase based upon the performance review of the city manager effective at the beginning of the pay period, which includes July 1st, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion with regard to this. We had a committee of 3, which was Brian and
Myself and Mike and Brett.
Brett. Okay. And you guys came up with the calculations in terms of the different categories and the overall.
Yes.
We compiled the information from all the council members and then did yes.
Okay. Okay. Any other further discussion with regard to this? Okay, hearing none, this would be a roll call vote.
Hannah,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Maynard,
Yes.
Prusader,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Next, we move to item number 16. I need a motion to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a resolution to approve a homeowner agency repair program project according to Independence TIF LMI set-aside administrative plan. First, I need the motion.
So, second.
Okay, this is 501 Fourth Avenue Southwest, and I believe that this was a window replacement? $10,000, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Any further discussion with regard to that particular,
That process starts by the phone call to you,
Usually to Susan.
to Susie. Have you had any more than that one, Susie?
So the application period for the second part of this fiscal year was already done and over. We didn't budget anything right now for '26, only just to see where we were at. We could open it back up in '26. It would require a budget amendment if council would decide to do that.
Have you had any contacts?
I've had a few people ask, I've told them we're not taking applications right now, but they could reach out to Habitat if they need something immediate. So,
We added in the memo on this one too, since we had budgeted originally $170,000 for fiscal year '25, we've spent $52,768 of that $170K so far before this $10,000 approval. So if the council approves this, so with that, it would be $62,768. My, I guess, guidance to the council in that regard would be if we wanted to add something in fiscal year '25, it'd be very easy to just put the other 110 roughly that's left over from this one into fiscal year '26 and plan on that. We can do that through a budget amendment when the time comes. These are funds that are sitting in the LMI fund, for lack of a better way of putting it anyway. So the money is sitting there. It's just a question of what we wanted to do.
Well, when I seen that amount in there, I thought people could apply for that yet, so that's
Yes,
why
I
I'm
thought
asking.
too.
Because I did have somebody ask and told me to call City Hall and inquire about it, because we're
Does
doing this
Intercog
tonight.
still do the,
yes, Intercog does the income verification. So
Right.
that's why we've done it both ways where we just take them randomly, but then it's, to me, more work on Intercog to where they send a group, we can do them all, kind of get the process going a little easier as opposed to, here's one.
Yeah.
2 months later, here's another one.
Right.
So,
but I think it's an excellent idea, man. I'd like to see us disperse this. I mean, this
I
is.
mean, that's general guidance from the council. We can make sure we
What's
put that in the
for?
budget amendment for the next
Yeah.
cycle and for the first one that we'll do in fiscal year '26, which won't be until the fall. I mean, we can go ahead and do the program. We just know that we need to do that in order to pay for it.
Sure.
And that's actually a percentage of TIF money, is that?
Yeah,
We have
yeah,
to
it's
increase
a 39.
39.21%
Thank you.
before it goes to the developer.
Yeah,
So when people are against TIF money, this shows them that that's a good use for it.
a portion of it for sure.
And it helps our whole community.
Oh, it does. Reaches people many times that would not be able to afford the projects.
any further discussion? Okay, this will be a roll call vote then.
Moore,
Yes.
Maynard,
Yes.
Prusader,
Yes.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Hannah.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Next, we move to item number 17. I need a motion to set a public hearing on May 27. Is that the Tuesday?
Yes, that's a Tuesday.
Okay. At 5 PM for consideration of rezoning request from C2 commercial to C1 commercial within City of Independence, Buchanan County, Iowa. First, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. This is, Planning and Zoning has already reviewed this and approved it at their May 12th meeting.
They recommended approval this morning.
Sorry, they recommended approval this morning. I apologize.
It's okay.
This is part of the, doesn't say on here. This is the Creamery, and they've got that new building that they're using for office space. But it's currently Zone C2, and because it's an office space only, it should be C1 as the proper designation for it. So this is to set a public hearing in order to discuss the change from the C2 to the C1. Okay. Anybody have any further discussion with regard to that? Okay. Then, so you're just voting now on setting the time and date for the
Public hearing.
public hearing? Okay, roll call vote.
Maynard?
Yes.
Prusader?
Yes.
O'Laughlin?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Hannah?
Yes.
Moore?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Next, we move to item number 18. I need a motion to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a resolution that changes the meeting time for work sessions and regular meetings of city council effective July 1st, 2025. First, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we talked about this at our work session, and there've been several people that have been indicating that 5 o'clock is too early for them to make the meetings. We've discussed the fact that we've got department heads and other people that are attending that are off the clock technically, but have to come back to work in order to attend a later meeting. And I believe that the discussion was that the majority felt that it would be appropriate to change the time from 5 o'clock to 5:30. So that's what we're going to discuss right now.
What did department heads think about that?
They're not necessarily in favor of it, but I don't think any of them are that overly concerned about it either. I mean, when we had the conversation last week, there was a lot of same types of concerns of what's already been voiced as far as having to come back for another meeting rather than staying, that type of deal. I don't think half an hour was too big of an impact to them, but they were concerned about it potentially being shoved back further than that.
What's the consensus among those that argued that the city needs to change its meeting time? I mean, did a half hour produce any positive comments from them, or?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get many more people here for the meeting. Brian had a good thing, I thought, though, about if there was future people that wanted to become council people, but then in reality, if somebody become council person and couldn't do it till 5:15, couldn't it be changed at that time for that purpose? Or discussed at least?
It could be, but would you want to run for a position not knowing whether or not the meetings would be able to, you know what I mean? It'd be a question at that point if you're thinking about it from the perspective of somebody who might want to run for council. If the meeting time is currently at 5 and they can't make that work, would you run for council under the hopes that the rest of the council would agree with moving it back?
I guess if enough people wanted
I can
to
tell you my
vote
experience.
for him.
Being with where I worked at before, I had talked with them ahead of time, or at least let them know that I would be leaving. I mean, if I'm going to be taking on a role as a council member, I'm going to be talking to my employer saying that, this is something that's important to me and our city, but I think that we should be able to leave this, and if your employer supports you in doing that, then that's the way that I feel.
I agree with Brent.
Other further discussion? Okay, so this will be a roll call vote, and we're voting to move the time of meeting starting July 1st from 5 o'clock to 5:30, and this would be both the regular sessions and the work session as well. Okay? Roll call vote then.
Well, I was going to say, just for clarification, if you're not in favor and you want to keep them at 5, you vote no. If you're in favor, you vote yes. 'Cause sometimes people get confused. Prusader.
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Jensen.
No.
Weber.
Yes.
Hannah.
No,
Moore.
Yes.
Maynard.
Yes.
Okay, so that passes 5-2.
so when does it start?
July 1st.
July 1st.
So the first meeting that occurs after July 1st will be at 5:30. I'll make sure when I send my notice out that I point that out too.
I gotta sit here.
Okay, let's move to then other business. Item number 19, I need a motion to adopt the vision statement, mission statement, and strategic goals outlined in the agenda memo. First, I need a motion.
So moved?
And-
Second.
Okay, this is what we discussed at our
Strategic planning.
strategic planning, and this is what we had agreed upon at that point, subject to further discussion here at the time of the meeting. Is there further discussion here at this point in time with regard to any of those three? Okay, there's no further discussion, then this will be a roll call vote.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Jensen,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Maynard,
Yes.
Crusader.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Next, we move to item number 20. This is a motion to authorize the city manager to move forward with the Axon camera purchase for the police department. We discussed this at the time of our work session, and,
It was discussed during the budget cycle as well.
right, and there were three different quotes, and David, Chief Nieder had explained why he thought this was the best solution for us. Is there further discussion with regard to this at all?
The only question I have is, if it passes, what time frame are we looking at before all the equipment and everything is in?
I don't know that we necessarily have an exact time frame on when the equipment would be in yet. but
Near the
we
end of
wouldn't-
the year?
We wouldn't start the process until after, we can't make any payment until after 1st of July anyway, because it's part of the fiscal year '26 budget. We can definitely come back and update the council unless you have, Dave, do you have any specific information on when you think they might be able to provide equipment? The only thing that I wanted to clarify for everybody and make sure everybody understands, the reason we put this on there and we labeled it as an authorization for purchase is because my purchasing authority stops at $50,000 for anything that's budgeted. So anything that's in excess of that, whether it's a budgeted amount or not, is going to come back to you guys for you guys to give a final approval on, even if it's a budgeted amount.
So by ordering and getting the contract done now, that'll start that process, and it does two things, and I think I explained this at the work session too. We're going to lock in a 2024 fiscal year price before they go up. So that's the one thing, it saves us some money. And number two, instead of after July 1st signing the contract and then waiting the time period, we're going to have the equipment closer to July 1st, we hope. Part of that is going to be the install process, though, with those cars, because that's included within the budget. So they're actually sending techs out to do all the installs in our cars. So it'll take a while for that to get set up and done, but once that's done, then we'll be up and running with it. And I would hope by that third week in July, we'd be up and running on the new system.
Oh, okay, that's a lot quicker than what I was anticipating.
Yeah, and barring anything from Axon's side where they're going to have a backlog or whatever, back order, we should have it fairly quick. And that was the other reason. We've worked with Axon before on the tasers, and we know they do follow through on their promises for things.
Great.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave.
Chief, before you walk away, let's have the vote, because your PD monthly report is after this vote, so rather than having you walk back and...
I'll stay and listen to the vote, Mayor.
That sounds like a plan. Okay, if there's no further discussion, then this will be a roll call vote.
Jensen,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Hannah,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Maynard.
Yes.
Crusader.
Yes.
O'Laughlin.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Now we move to the reports. We have the PD monthly report. I don't know if anybody had any questions. If they don't, Dave, I kept you up here
I will sit
unnecessarily.
down quietly either way.
So is there any questions regarding his report? Okay. Keeping in mind that he submits a report at the work sessions with regard to the entire department issues, but what we've decided to do is we want to see monthly statistics. So this report is the statistics part of it, so we can understand the number of calls and the type of calls that the police department's being involved in. Okay, if there's no further discussion, thank you, Dave, I appreciate it.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, next we have the fire department monthly reports. Was there any questions that you had with regard to the fire department's report? Okay, hearing none. The next one, item number 23, is the building department monthly report. Any questions with regard to the building department report?
Yeah, there was 10 complaints on there, and some of them are violations issued. That's pretty understandable. But then there's two of them that are closed. So what that just means that they've complied to whatever?
If they're closed, they would be, yeah, they would be items or addresses that have complied with whatever issue was identified.
Now, if you
So they
drive by,
comply
and look-
with the code as it currently reads.
if you drive by and look at one of those that's closed, I don't know how you closed it, but it doesn't look any better than it did the beginning with it, I think. And then what's the signed mean?
Probably like an in process. They're still working on it.
And so then when these violations are issued, if they don't comply, there's a next step, right?
Yeah, if there's a violation issued and it's not complied with or not cleaned up, then the next step would be to turn it over to the city attorney for enforcement action through the courts.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, don't we have a situation where sometimes you've been in contact with the person and they've agreed to do something by a particular date, but it hasn't been done yet? That could be why the signed David agreement to do something just hasn't been completed within the
It's
date.
possible that that's the case, yes.
I'm not
I
sure
don't,
positive.
But then you wouldn't close it.
You wouldn't close it until after.
Correct.
That's why it would
Until
show
after
up
it's-
as signed, but without.
That's why if anybody drives past these and looks at them, I don't know how they can think that's closed, but.
it's also possible that when you drive by and look, or when an individual drives by and looks at it, their interpretation of the code may not necessarily be what the code actually says. I mean, we can only enforce what the code says we can enforce. So we'd need to look at it closer and take a look. I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm just saying we need to look at it.
Okay, let's move to item number 24, which is the ILPT reports. Any questions with regard to those? Okay, let's move to council members' reports. Brett, do you have anything?
I have nothing.
Deb, do you have anything?
No, but I see, just tomorrow at 2 o'clock is the tour of the Getney Hotel, right?
Correct.
It's the Catalyst grant itself.
Yeah, above there, the apartments.
Mr. Thompson is going to sign off on it if he feels that it's appropriate, and then that would come back to us to fund.
Okay.
Nothing, thank you.
Nothing.
Good, Mayor, thank you.
Mike?
I'm just disappointed. I was going to bring it up during the ILPT reports, but had to change my email after all these.
Yeah. That was tough for you, wasn't it?
It was, and now I've got to contact. I thought it would just be passed on through. I have to contact their Social Security, Medicare, everybody.
They have a new site anyway, so you got to do it anyway. But yeah, I hear you. You had to go in and change everything.
Catherine, do you have anything?
Yeah, I do have something. It was really nice to see the training of the police dogs in our community. I know people were a little upset because they saw police officers everywhere, but it was really nice to see them utilizing our hotels and restaurants and all the other areas in town. It's just kind of nice to be an open and welcoming community for them.
Great. Okay. Did you want to go before me or after me?
Feel free, go ahead.
Okay. The only thing that I have is at the April 28th meeting, Daniel Young came forward and had questions that he wanted answers to by council. And a lot of I know that city manager and several of the council members have already submitted written responses to him, and others are in the process of doing so. But I thought I would take this opportunity to try to answer some of these questions as best as I can based upon the information that I have. And if anybody wanted to chime in, they think I've missed something, we can certainly do that at this point in time. The first question is, are you aware Independence has the 4th highest property tax rate in the state for towns our size and is 25% above the average tax rate for towns our size, 5 to 10 population? The answer is that we are aware of this. We happen to be the 4th highest this year, but that's going to fluctuate from year to year depending upon the levy and what projects that you have going on that you've completed. In the past 5 years, we've had a lot of projects that had been put off and that were overdue to be completed. Some of these include the Highway 150 South, the Highway 150 North, the 1st Street East, including the new bridge over the Malone Creek. At the eastern end of the project, the bike and walking trail along 6th Avenue from Lover's Lane to Bland, the Liberty Trail. So there were a lot of things, and also the downtown restoration that we did, which was a big deal.
$788,000 from the city.
So we partnered with the business owners as part of that grant. So there's quite a bit of things that we've been doing in the last 5 years, which is why we're in the position that we're in. But as time goes on, a lot of those things have, now that they've been completed, the expectation is that our rate will be lowering over time, unless there's some other big expenditures that come along that would apply to that. Did I miss anything with regard to that answer? Anybody? Okay, let's move to item number 2 then. Which city government entities or departments kept their budgets at or below last year's level? To my knowledge, none of the departments had the same or less than last year's budget. And that's principally a couple of things. One is salaries. One is the insurance cost increases that were pretty dramatic this year, as I recall. And the other is inflation. So those are going to affect those numbers. Did I miss anything there? Anybody else think I have something further?
No, two of those threes are things that are beyond our control. You know, the insurance and what inflation's done, so there's nothing we can do about that.
It's also worth pointing out that the city has no ability to set appraisal rates or do anything with appraisals. And that's a piece that commonly gets missed when you're looking at property taxes, is the city sets a levy rate. Outside of that, the county and the assessor's office is who sets what the home is worth in the valuations.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for that. The third question is, where is the funding for the newly proposed projects for the fire station and the new civic center going to come from? First off, I think it's important to note that these are discussion items. We're nowhere near deciding about this. We haven't got plans drawn for anything. We haven't got quotes from anybody in terms of financing things. We don't even, you know, as a city, we have to look ahead. We can't do something just immediately on day one. We have to look ahead and plan for things. So part of this is, you know, the fire department, while it's essential that we do something at some point in time, because we can't replace the current equipment that we have, because the newer equipment is larger and it's not going to fit in our fire department. So something's got to be done, but we're not talking about something that's going to be done in the next 6 months or even a year, possibly even within 2 years. We're talking about projects that are down the road that potentially we could be looking at. With regard to the Civic Center, the only reason that the Civic Center is a topic right now is we've been offered money with respect to the current one that we have. So we're trying to make a determination in terms of whether we should take advantage of this offer that we have and potentially move the Civic Center to the theater. One thing about the Civic Center is this is an older building. When we looked at the items for capital gains, we had approximately 150,000, wasn't it?
Capital improvements, yeah.
Capital improvements,
yeah,
and
approximately
that we were going to have in the coming year. So by looking at other options, we potentially are saving ourselves that money, and we can take the money from there. So if you've got a 70-year-old building or whatever the Civic Center is, and then you've got another building which is made out of concrete, and I forget what the theater is. It's less than 20 years old, and it's going to have.
Somebody said 18 years old.
So we're looking at it. We're looking at something that is this the right decision to make? And the initial part of this is we hired an architect, and it's the same architect we used for the police department, and we wanted to know what it would cost us to move the facilities from the Civic Center over to the current location. Is this something that can be feasibly done? So step one is we looked at feasibility. Is this something we want to get involved in? Because if it's not something that we're going to be able to pretty much pay for the majority of that portion of it through the sale, there's no point in doing it. So that's why we're looking at this now. And then the larger part of this is a multi-phase type thing. We're looking at other potential opportunities for sports complex type things. Like we've been so successful with the baseball, softball in terms of a number of tournaments that we're bringing in, et cetera, and bringing in people to the community and bringing in money to the community. We're hoping that something similar could potentially happen with regard to basketball and volleyball and wrestling and things like that, where we could bring people in for tournaments and bring more people in and bring more revenue to the city itself. So those are things that we're looking at and we're talking about, but we're not in a position where we're funding anything at this point in time. These are just our thoughts in terms of what might be good for the community in the long run. Anything further that I missed there?
I think I'll just piggyback on what you said would be is that moving to the location out at Starlight would it allow us to be able to do that because of the amount of space that's there. With the current location we're at now, we couldn't expand into those types of things, and all we are is just looking at it like you had stated and seeing what that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brett.
Yeah.
Okay, item number 4 is, why does council still force homeowners to pay for street rehab adjacent to their property when the city's already collecting road use tax instead of accounting for the project's full cost in the budget? I was, several years ago, probably, I think there might be 1 or 2 people that are on this current council. We were looking at a bad situation with respect to our overall roads in the city. None of the repairs were being made. Every time council something would come up, we'd be in a position where we wouldn't have the money for it. And as a result of that, we were not properly maintaining roads within the city. So many of them were being rated as unsatisfactory or poor. And so a number of years ago, the council determined that one of the ways to solve that problem was to make sure that we had money when we did these projects. So we talked about, we had Crawford come in and help us evaluate them, and then we decided on a certain number of roads that we were going to do each year. The idea being that if we have a plan to move forward, we can do things that's effective for the city itself, and we can have our roads be in good condition or much better than what we have now. So the reason for the charge was well, I think maybe the 2 council members or so that are here can speak to it better than I. But the idea is that we needed to find a way to make this happen, and by having
$30 per linear.
$30 per lineal foot, gave us a situation where we were able to fund a lot of these that we wouldn't have been able to fund otherwise.
Initially, it came out to about 1/3 of the total cost. But with rising costs and inflation and everything else, it's less than that. But the idea was people benefit from a new road or an improved road in front of their property. So that was one of the drivers of it, plus the fact that it was a steady form of income that we could count on when we had projects like that.
Anything else? Deb?
No, there was a lot of discussion on it, and it had to be paid for some way, and we weren't, like you said, we weren't getting them done the other way, so.
And this is a topic that we discuss every year. This is my 3rd year just completing my 3rd year as the mayor. And every year, we've had a conversation about this when we start talking about which roads we're going to have for the year. Is this something we want to continue to do? So it's a topic of conversation. This is not a hard and fast rule that we're going to do this forever and ever and ever. But we're trying to make sure that we can do what's best for the citizens here, and that's what we're trying to do.
Well, if we don't do it, it's going to come out of property taxes, which could increase the property taxes because that's how you're going to get the money.
Well, it does, yeah. I mean, if we didn't do it, we would have to debt fund for more to pay for the project, which then gets tacked onto the backside of the levy rate, so as a debt levy, so yes.
So you're going to get,
Or we do fewer projects a year, fewer streets.
That's the other option,
Back down to
yes.
3 rather than 5 or something like that.
you're
Correct.
going to get dinged one way or the other.
Okay. Anything?
Or have bad streets.
Anything further that I've missed there? Okay, the final item is, where are all the road use tax dollars being spent? And the road use dollars go directly into for operations of our street department. The funding from the road use taxes is entirely within the streets department. The money doesn't go anywhere but the streets department. I'm sure I'm missing other things about this. Is there something else that we should be commenting on here?
So it pays for the majority of the streets department. There's a small amount of general fund dollars that goes into the streets department as well. But the majority of their costs, as far as for snow removal, for all the things they typically do, is paid for by the road use tax dollars.
Materials, equipment,
Correct.
things like that.
Right. Anything else?
With the exception of large items that we sometimes debt fund for. I mean, there's,
Does that include payroll?
Yes.
yeah, salaries.
Payroll gets paid out of road use tax.
Yeah, that's the primary,
Figured it probably was.
And it goes, if there's that money in there, it goes toward buying equipment too, or is that?
Yes.
yeah. It can, yes, but we can also debt fund for that
Right.
equipment. I mean, it just depends on the size of the equipment and what makes the most financial sense for the city.
Okay, did I miss anything else there?
No, I think that was good.
Okay, those were the 5 questions. One thing I want to say is I really appreciate Daniel Young coming forward and talking about these things, because we're not trying to hide anything. We're trying to, but by the same token, we don't know what questions people might have until they ask us about them. And the appropriate place to do it is here at the meeting, but if you want to send an email to somebody and ask questions, or you want to schedule a meeting with the city manager, that's what we're interested in doing. We want to do what's best for the citizens, and we want to try to be as open as possible and give as much information as we possibly can to anybody that has questions about how we're operating.
The foundation of a representative government such as this is the citizens' involvement. We need their involvement, we need
do.
their feedback, and we need to hear what they have to say.
And I hear from a lot of people the balance between, we got to have things in our community that people like and want to do, but also, keeping taxes lower. So we're constantly trying to balance that out and do the best we can with that.
Okay.
Well, a good example of that is the partnership, the public-private partnership with 8th Avenue, for example. People are very happy. I've been approached with 2 or 3 people, they work in the construction field, but they thought that made perfect sense to do it that way.
Okay, that's all I had. Matt, do you?
The only other thing I wanted to clarify on there, I know that during, I think it was Mr. Young or maybe somebody else during one of those comments had made a comment that the median age in Independence was 60. That's not correct. The median age in Independence is 41.2, according to the census data. And the largest demographic, the largest percentage of people in Independence is between the ages of 10 and 19. Over 15% of our population is between 10 and 19.
So we got a young city.
I think it's good to see.
Yeah.
I think the new school piece has helped, and then the new housing that we really, really worked towards for a
Yep.
long time.
The next largest population demographic is 50 to 59 at 14%. So it's good to see, though, that we have that many between that ages of 10 and 19. That means the community is growing and people are wanting to raise their kids here, which is, I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
the only other thing that I had for the group, I'm going to be out of office starting at noon on Wednesday this week and won't be back until Thursday, the 22nd. So taking some time off because I got one more graduating high school and one left. So
okay, I need
Graduating college.
a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Stand adjourned.